We all know the standard history of World War II. D-Day, Stalingrad, the atomic bomb. But the sheer scale of the conflict meant that millions of unbelievable stories, bizarre inventions, and insane coincidences were lost to time, classified as top secret or just forgotten.
What if I told you the war was won not just by generals, but by a teenager who talked over 1,000 soldiers into surrendering? Or by a specialized plastic explosive that you could actually bake into bread? Today, we're ignoring the textbooks. We are looking at the untold stories of the Second World War, the spies, the scientists, and the soldiers whose bizarre tales will make you rethink everything you thought you knew.
Our first stop is the island of Saipan, 1944. Meet Guy Gabaldon. He was a 19-year-old Marine, but he had a secret weapon. As a kid, Guy was practically raised by a Japanese-American family in East LA and spoke the language fluently. On Saipan, while others were fighting, Guy would sneak away from his unit and walk into Japanese caves. He didn't use a gun, he talked.
He persuaded over 1,300 Japanese soldiers and civilians that they wouldn't be tortured if they surrendered. He convinced entire garrisons. Yet, for decades, his story was barely known. And it wasn't just on the front lines. In London, during the peak of the Blitz, the city faced another existential threat: drowning. Bombs were hitting the flood defenses of the River Thames. If they breached, massive parts of London would go underwater.
But a brilliant civil engineer named Sir Thomas Pearson Frank led a special secret team that raced to repair these breaches, sometimes while bombs were still falling. They saved London from drowning at least 121 times. This was so critical and so secret to prevent panic that nobody knew how close London came to total disaster until long after the war ended.
This war saw the absolute peak of speed by the mad scientist engineering. Necessity is the mother of invention, but another necessity was the mother of some really weird stuff. Let's talk about Aunt Jemima. No, not the pancake mix. The Office of Strategic Research and Development, or OSRD, was tasked with getting materials behind enemy lines. So they invented a plastic explosive that looked exactly like flour. You could actually bake this flour into bread or biscuits without it exploding. A spy or resistance fighter could pass a checkpoint holding what looked like breakfast, but add a blasting cap and your muffin becomes a bomb. This is muffin. It becomes a bomb, used by Chinese guerrillas to destroy Japanese infrastructure. And that's not all. In 1942, they actually proposed the use of diving wings. Think prehistoric wingsuits for paratroopers.
The idea was that special forces could dive through the air, changing their trajectory to evade fire and glide silently toward a landing zone.
It sounds like Batman, but it was a serious proposal. They didn't quite work, but the fact that they even tried shows how desperate the scramble for tech was. Another is, this brings us to one of my favorite stories, because sometimes the course of war isn't decided by brilliant strategy, but by plumbing. In April 1945, the German U-boat U-12 Selfix was on patrol. This was a high-tech sub and it had a brand new advanced high-pressure toilet system.
However, the system was complicated. Decided to use it, but didn't know how to operate the valves properly. He called an engineer, who also messed it up. Instead of flushing, seawater started flooding the sub while it was submerged. The seawater hit the massive battery packs below the toilet, generating lethal chlorine gas. The crew was choking. The captain had no choice but to surface the brand new submarine and blow it up to keep it out of enemy hands. The crew were captured.
And we can't talk about Stranger Than Fiction without mentioning Operation Mincemeat, the time the British Army successfully invaded a continent using a corpse.
British intelligence needed to invade Sicily, but they knew Hitler expected it.
Their plan? Find a homeless man who had died in London, dress him as a Royal Marine captain, attach a briefcase to him filled with top-secret invasion plans of Greece.
They released the body off the coast of Spain, knowing the neutral Spanish would find it and pass the secret documents to the Nazis. Hitler took the bait completely. He moved his best divisions to Greece. When the Allies finally hit Sicily, the island was practically unguarded.
To finish off, here is a lightning round, a stacks you know not know that put the war in perspective. World War II wasn't just a conflict of massive armies and industrial might. It was a chaotic, desperate time that forced creativity and bravery from ordinary people in extraordinary ways. These untold stories are more than trivia. They are the human, messy reality of history. And if you want another episode where we dive deeper into specific secret operations, hit that like button. Make sure to subscribe for more deep dives into the weirdest corners of history. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.